True story. Unmarried couple decide to buy a house together. They find the home, they get the financing. Their closing is Friday. On Wednesday, the boyfriend gets the idea he's going to propose at the closing table, and he goes out and finances an engagement ring on Wednesday, maxing out his credit card. Guess what? The closing ain't going to happen. And I don't think that's a good way to start off a marriage. Stick around and we're going to talk about some of the things you must pay attention to so you don't make critical mistakes as a buyer when you're purchasing a home. Hello everyone, Will Melton here with Century 21 Redwood Realty. Just like you can see in the intro, we're going to focus on how to stay out of trouble if you're a buyer and with your mortgage once you get your loan. It basically covers 4 different areas. One is cash, the other credit, employment, and then spending overall. I'm just going to go over a few things and give a few examples of how people really didn't listen to this type of advice and got into a lot of trouble. Most people, they find their home, they apply for a mortgage, they listen to their mortgage lender, and everything works out fine. Others go through absolute hell when they do something wrong, run into a brick wall, and the financing falls through at the last minute. And a lot of times this is why it happens. One of these items I'm mentioning today. Some of the don'ts is don't make any major purchases. You want to freeze your spending. You're going to buy a house. You're going to take about 30 days in the process to get everything finished up and get to the closing table. Just freeze spending until that process is over. You don't want to make any major purchases. No cars, and like in the example in the intro, no engagement rings. No items for your new home. Say you're wanting to get new carpet for the top floor of the house and you couldn't get it in the negotiations. You're going to do that as soon as you move in the home. Wait and take care of those finances. If you're going to finance that type of thing or spend it, just wait till after closing. The day after, do what you want. But hold off on all of that until the deal is done. And that it applies for cash and credit. As far as cash and credit and your funds in general, you really need to make sure that you completely explain your scenario with your loan officer. Some things that you may think don't need to be explained will need to be explained in the underwriter process. It's not actually your loan officer a lot of times. They put the packet together and then it goes through the checks and balances. And things like if you're going to sell something, all of a sudden you have $20,000 extra, you sell a car. You're going to need to tell your loan officer, say, hey, I'm getting ready to sell a car. It's going to get about $20,000. They know that up front. And if you don't tell them that, they may have to redo a lot of the things in underwriting after they find out. And it may be at the last minute causing all kinds of stress. So if you're going to sell something, a car, boat, whatever, make sure that you can verify that it was yours. Verify you sold it by a bill of sale, and then have a copy of the check or wire transfer coming to you, so at least you know where that money came from. Large deposits. Maybe you're getting a loan from a family member to help with the down payment on the home. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But you need to tell the loan officer that up front, because you can't just have $10,000, $20,000 showing up into your checking account without knowing where that money came from. It's just, a lot of times people think they don't need to explain that to the loan officer. All this is found out in the last week when you're right at the end of the process. Then they start having to re-verify that, and it could actually delay your closing if they have to run this back through verification. Work. You want to not change jobs, and if you're an hourly employee, just keep it steady. Definitely do not go under your normal hours. If you have tips and you're using that on your loan, you need to keep specific records, detailed records every day of the tips you get on your job. And we have a unique situation here in Northern Virginia. There is a lot of government contracting work. I had one client a couple years ago that he was an engineer, internet type engineer. So he worked for 4 different contracting companies and for government contracts. So it came up at the end of the year, it was September. So a new company, actually 2 new companies, were awarded the contracts that he was on. He did not change jobs, he didn't change desks, he didn't change anything. But he had brought his financing with him, his pre-approval. And on the records, it looked like he had changed jobs. And then they couldn't use the same process, so I had to go back and re-verify. Well, then they called to verify the work. He was so new they didn't even know his name yet, because all it was is the contract changed to a new company. He didn't change position. He stayed in the same job, but his paycheck was coming from someone new, and his mortgage company didn't really understand how to navigate that, and it all fell through. Another one is credit with your loan officer. Is leading up to the process and you're considering buying a home, don't go out and try to fix your credit on your own. What you think may be intuitive and will help your credit could actually hurt it. It's always better, instead of don't pay anything down, don't close credit cards. There's a lot of details in there that they can explain to you, but it can actually damage your credit if you're doing the wrong thing, or consolidating credit cards or other debt. So always talk to them first, and then they can advise you, okay, yes, that's a good idea, do this or that, and follow their advice, and don't go out on your own and try to do it. You definitely want to keep current on all your payments. And another big one is to just not co-sign for anyone. Of course, that's also part of your credit. Even though you're not the main signer, it will show up on your credit report. Because what's going to happen, they're going to run your credit, you're going to fill out everything, they're going to ask you all these questions. Some of it's going to sound really stupid, but they're going to ask a lot of details. You're going to submit your loan application. It's going to go through the approval process. Everything's going to be done. They're going to say you are cleared to go to the closing table. At that point, they're going to run your credit again and make sure nothing changed. If you've done any of these things, like my friend with the engagement ring and going thousands of dollars into debt, worst case, you're not closing, and the loan is denied. It's disapproved, and you're out of the pool. And then even the best case scenario in those items is you're going to have to go through the entire process again. And is the seller going to be willing to wait on you to go through the process and fix all the mess? I think I've covered everything. What I do on these items is when I have a buyer, I definitely have all this on a sheet. I have a list of things that you're going to need to have ahead of time that they're going to ask for, and then some of the things, the do's and don'ts during the process. So, and I know one of the biggest questions I have from people is, why do they want so much damn information? And they get really upset about the loan officer asking me, and they'll call me up and say, this guy's just, hounding me, or this girl's really hounding me, and just stupid questions. Well, they're not stupid questions, because you might be an honest person, but all of these rules and regulations are because someone has done something wrong using the system in the past. And just like in the 2008, leading up to 2008, at that point you could get a mortgage on a pinky swear, no documents loan. Those people could not afford the home that they bought, and they didn't have to prove that they could afford it, and nobody even checked. And that's what contributed quite a bit to the crisis we had in 2008, was they said everyone should have a home, whether they can pay for it or not. And they didn't want, they developed a system where you didn't have to prove anything. You could just basically get a home, and then when the interest only ran out, those people couldn't afford the home, and there we went. That was a major part of that crisis. So I appreciate you watching the video. Any comments on what I said today, any questions, let me know. And any subjects for the future, I'd really be happy if you'd let me know what you'd like me to talk about. And thanks again, and we'll see you soon. Bye.